Welcome to IQ Matrix TV, the home of hundreds of life-altering mind maps. This is Adam, and this is an overview video of the Thrive Amid Chaos IQ Matrix. If you're looking for more detailed summary of each branch, then please check out the other videos in this series. So for this video, what I will do is I will just walk through briefly each of the branches that will help us to get a good overview of what it takes to thrive amid chaos, to deal with very difficult sort of situations, uncertainty that you may face, adversity, setbacks, or whatever that may be in your life. So I hope that these ideas can help you to be your best self in those situations and make the most of those situations. Let's briefly just go over the four main branches. So the first branch, the first topic is the role model mindset. So that's that mentality we need to adopt in order to be able to thrive or give ourselves a chance to thrive amid chaos. The second branch, we talk about how to stay centered and grounded. So this is kind of like an extension of the role model mindset, and it requires us to understand what it takes to stay centered, to stay grounded, to stay objective, to think rationally through this difficult period that we are experiencing. In the third branch, we discuss how to manage fear. So when there's a lot of uncertainty happening, there's a lot of fear, and we don't know what's going to happen. So there's a lot of doubts, there's stress, and that creates fear and tension, and that's not pleasant. So here we discuss how to sort of manage our fears in an effective way. And in the fourth branch, we talk about how to plan ahead, how to develop a plan to help us to move through the crisis and make the best of those sort of situations. So let's go through each branch just briefly, and I'll discuss the main points and ideas so you get a nice overview of this map. So when it comes to the role model mentality, this is the ideal mentality to adopt during a crisis sort of situation when you're facing adversity or unexpected sort of circumstances arise. Because when we adopt the role model mentality, we start taking responsibility. We know that other people are relying on us. When we're a role model and say we're looking after other people, maybe it's kids, maybe it's colleagues, work colleagues, or maybe we're at school or in a sporting sort of environment, whatever that may be. When we adopt this mentality, we commit to taking responsibility, to making better decisions, and to helping everyone to make the best of this situation. The opposite, of course, and I'll just zoom in here just so I can write something down. The opposite, of course, is the victim mentality approach. Victim mentality. I'll just write. The victim mentality approach is something we want to try to avoid because the victim complains, blames, doesn't take responsibility for their circumstances. They feel like the world is conspiring sort of against them. When we adopt a role model mindset, yes, we understand that these things are not our fault, but we're not thinking in a way that the world is conspiring against us. We're rather thinking in a way that, okay, this is the reality. Now we must deal with these situations in the best way we can. So it's a very different sort of mindset and approach. The key ideas here in this branch are to commit to three things. So we need to commit to being an inspiring role model. We need to commit to setting a good example. And we need to commit to serving the greater good. So making decisions that serve the greater good. Then there are three areas that we need to demonstrate as a role model. And they come down to calmness, strength, emotional strength, and patience. We need to be able to check off each of these areas. And in the detailed summary of this branch, I discuss, or the video, I discuss this in far more detail here. But these are definitely three areas that we need to address when it comes to adopting a role model mentality. The second branch in the second video where I walk through these ideas is the idea of staying centered and grounded. And this is very important for us when we're dealing with difficult situations, crisis, chaos, whatever that may be. We have to be able to understand what it takes to stay centered and grounded so we can make effective decisions. We can make optimal decisions to help us move forward, help other people move forward. And if we can stay centered and grounded, that will help us to adopt that role model mentality far more effectively. And when it comes to staying centered and grounded, there are three things we need to address. So first, we need to address the emotional tone. So we need to set the right emotional tone. And this comes down to being intentional. We need to be very intentional with how we choose to show up each day. So that's something definitely to sort of keep in mind. And the second one is we need to bring the right attitude into a situation. And that's sort of like an extension of the emotional tone. And then the third one is the energy we project through our physiology and the value we bring into each situation. And just going back on attitude a little bit, attitude is all about the thoughts you have, the questions you ask, and just here, the stories you tell yourself about how you are in that situation. And when we think back to the victim mentality, the victim tells themselves a very different story about their circumstances than a role model who takes responsibility for their situation. Here we also touch upon to make a few commitments. In order to stay centered and grounded, we've got to make sure that we're not complaining about the situation. We've got to make sure that we're not overreacting to things that are going on around us. We need to stay physically grounded, objective, and rational. We need to think rationally through things. And we need to disengage emotionally from the chaos. All that is very important. And if we can get this right, if we can stay centered and grounded, then it will become much easier to adopt that role model mentality that will help us to be our best selves in this situation and help others to get through the situation in an effective way. In the third branch, we sort of break down the idea of how to manage our fears. And when there's a lot of uncertainty going on, a chaos crisis, whatever that may be for you, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear, and we need to understand how to manage our fears effectively. Because if we can manage our fears more effectively, then we can stay more centered and grounded. And if we stay more centered and grounded, what does that do? That helps us to maintain that role model mindset and mentality. That's where we can make the best of situations. So in this branch, what I do is I break down three fears. So the three fears include, there's sort of like pain points: loss pain, process pain, and outcome pain. And the way we tackle these fears is we look at how to focus in a different way. So I'll write under here, just here, focus, focus. This is very important. This is kind of like an underlying theme for this branch, because when we focus on our fears, of course, we're going to experience those fears. But if we can redirect our focus on something else in another way, then that will mean that our fears will start to dissipate, because we no longer focus on the fear, we're focused on something else. So the key areas here, what we're trying to do here is create perspective shifts. So we're trying to change the way we think about things in order to nullify the fear and move us forward in a more positive, productive, and optimal way. So for the fear of loss, we look at two things. So we look at the idea of changing our perspective to gain and growth. So we're focusing on what we could gain from the situation, and we're focusing on how we could grow from the situation. And because we're focusing on gain and growth, we're no longer worried about so much about what we fear of losing. We're rather focusing on the skills, the knowledge, opportunities, anything that we could sort of gain from this situation to make the best of the situation. When it comes to process pain, this is all about the difficulties and mistakes that we face. That's kind of like the present moment sort of experience, and the loss pain is the past experience of things that we were losing. So here, for the process pain aspect of it, we again need to focus on a few things. So here we focus on opportunities, on challenges, on shifting our perspective to an experimentation mentality. And this is one of the big things I break down in a more detailed breakdown of this branch. And then also we gamify. If we focus on gamifying and using experiments to work through our fears, to work through situations, to work through the uncertainty that we're facing, then that changes everything. And when you watch the detailed breakdown of this, you'll start to understand how all that sort of comes together, and how you can use it to help you to manage and overcome your fears. And the last fear is kind of like future fear, outcome pain. We're worried about the failure, the uncertain future, the change that will result, that things will not be as we imagine them to be. So again, here we're trying to focus on different sort of ways of perspective shifts we can make to help us to manage that fear and overcome it in the best possible way. So here we need to shift to focusing on possibilities. And that is all about, asking ourselves what if questions. What if this will work out? What if that will happen, etc., etc. We also look at courage and luck, and two perspective shifts that can help us to fully sort of let go of the fear, so the fear will no longer have a hold of us. And I do break this down in quite a bit of detail, and I think you'll find the luck aspect very valuable. And there's this question here we talk about in the detailed breakdown of this map: what if life is rigged in my favor? And this is such an interesting perspective shift that can literally transform your life. So take a look at that. So that's pretty much the fear aspect and what we need to do to manage our fears. And then in the final video, we discuss how to plan, what to do, how to plan, especially against these factors here. So we need to plan ahead to deal with adversity, to deal with stress, to deal with anxiety, fears, problems, doubt. These are all things that will arise as we work through this sort of crisis situation. And why we approach that is through scenario building. So we work on building scenarios. By scenarios, what I mean is we need to ask ourselves what if questions. Again, it kind of comes back to this question as well. What if such and such will happen? And how will I handle those sort of situations when they do happen? And specifically, we need to address what if I experience stress, anxiety, and fear in these sort of situations. What if adversity, these setbacks occur, or whatever it is? We need to be able to deal with those situations as effectively as possible. And if we can build scenarios and we can plan ahead how we will respond, so it doesn't mean how you will effectively deal with those situations, because it's hard to predict exactly what will come up or what will happen. But if you can identify how you respond in terms of responding to stress, to self-doubt, to fear, that will help you to be your best self in that situation, and then to attempt to make the best of that situation. And we go over several questions and sub-questions here that will help you to sort of identify those areas, and I break them down in obviously further detail as well. So, and then one of the final things here is and this is one of the most important things, is how will I choose to show up? It's one of the most important questions in this map. If you're going to thrive amid chaos, make the best of difficult sort of situations, you need to be intentional. Right here again, intentional in how you choose to show up in any environment that you face, where you face adversity, where you face uncertainty, whatever that may be for you. So definitely check out the full video breakdown of each branch of this map, and that will give you all the information you need to thoroughly understand each of these topics. And this will provide you this will effectively provide you with a blueprint, a roadmap, and I like to call it also a framework to help you to thrive amid chaos, to help you to make the best of very difficult sort of situations. This stuff really works, and you don't need to read a lot of books. You don't really need to read any books. All the answers you need in order to master this topic, they're all hidden. Well, not hidden, I mean, they're all presented in this map, but we need to be able to explore them, study them, to apply them, and to work through these questions. There's a lot of questions here that will help us to thoroughly understand and apply these ideas into our lives, and that's effectively what we need to start doing. And so I hope that this overview video was of value. If you want to check out more detailed breakdowns of each of the branches, then check out the other videos in this series. And if you want to read a detailed blog post summary of this map, then check that out below. You want to download this map, check out the links below. And yeah, give this video a thumbs up if you found this of value, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed yet, and you'll receive notifications when new videos are released. So I hope this overview video was of value, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.